Good morning, Windows Daily number 292, where myself and the chat room stand ready to answer questions, Windows related. And those are questions that are come to me by email at this email address, or as comments on any of my videos, or as questions that come up in the chat room during a show. This is September 15th, 2023 on a Friday, 9:01 a.m. currently. I have a story to tell. I don't have any emails or comments. Well, I do have comments. Let's go to the comments first. Then I got a picture story to tell. I released a video. I published a video yesterday that was an excerpt or clips from yesterday's Windows Daily. Alice says, great and helpful PC tips. Thank you for coming in with that comment, Alice. Pineapple Road, with doing any sort of backup of the system, Microsoft currently recommends labeling the backups to indicate if they were done before or after the May 2023 update. Due to a massive secure boot revocation that's due to be enforced some point in 2024. But some devices right now will display a secure boot violation message if you attempt to boot pre-May 2023 Windows. Most of them are ones that the user has manually applied the revocations, but I have heard of OEM devices behaving like this out of the box. Now, this is the first I heard of this topic, so I did a little research on it yesterday when I saw this comment come in. And so what I'm deducing so far, and this may get corrected over time, but it's apparent to me that if you have secure boot turned on and then you restore an image prior to May 2023 or anything else that is on the revocation list, that your computer won't boot. But I think all you have to do then is go into UEFI BIOS and turn off secure boot. Then it will boot. The purpose for secure boot is to prevent the bad guys from booting something, their bad stuff without you knowing. But if you're intentionally trying to boot something like an older operating system that secure boot might reject, I think all you're going to have to do is go into UEFI BIOS and turn off secure boot. Now that indicates that somebody who has physical access to your computer could get around secure boot by going in to turn it off. Well, if you want to protect against that, then you put a BIOS on your UEFI setup screen so that they can't go in to change BIOS, but they could still open the computer up and manually reset BIOS by removing the battery and plugging it back in. So all the protections that we have, they protect against a certain little piece. So I think this caution here about doing the backups, I'm not going to bother going back and labeling backups that were done prior to May 2023. First of all, when I go to do a restore, I'm selecting a restore file based upon the date. And in most cases, at this point in time, I don't think I have secure boot enabled on my client's computer, although that is going to become more and more of a thing. But if I ever need to restore an image that's prior to the May 2023, or somehow I think this revocation thing is a list that secure boot has of softwares and firmwares that are not allowed to be used when you have secure boot turned on because they have been identified as bad actors. So thank you for Pineapple Road for bringing up this subject, because I think it has initiated my education on this. By the way, I did do a confirmation of audio. I just didn't tell you about it. You made a speech typo. Put a BIOS on your UEFI BIOS. Probably should have been put a password on you. Yeah, I did. In my head, I was clearly saying put a password on your UEFI BIOS, not a BIOS on your UEFI BIOS. Thank you for that correction, Selden Ball. Let's see, glancing over, it looks like the other chat messages are conversations between people. So that is Pineapple Road. I don't need to send a reply to him because he watches frequently enough, so he'll know that I covered that. Matthew Barnes 99, in regards to today's trailer, which included Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine, Says Slash is a guitar playing legend. If Doug hasn't worked it out, I'm talking about Guns N' Roses guitar player. If you had not told me that, I would have deduced that you're talking about one of the members of the band. I would not have known that he was the guitar player because I did not know the name. Nope, I'm not that in tune. I'm not that cool. I'm not one of the cool kids. Of course, that band's been around for a long time. So when I was young, I certainly had the potential of knowing that, and I did not. Get over it. No. Dashboard, was there something I wanted to show? I'll just go see how that video did yesterday. So far, it's 7 of 10 of my edited video releases. So not going gangbusters. I'll go take a look at chat, and then I'll go do my picture story of some work that I did on Big Beast Build yesterday. Not a whole lot of comments here in chat. Brian Lightfoot, Cinderella was not a great soccer player. She was always running away from the ball. Alice says hello. I hope everyone is okay. William Dawson, Mike Wojcik, William Dawson, Selden Ball, George Armstrong, Mike again, Selden Ball. Tell me about the speech typo. Now, I have a picture story of work that I did with Big Beast yesterday. What did I got? 37 pictures and videos. Not a whole lot of videos. Let's see, 4 videos down there. And these are in order that I took the pictures. So let's go ahead and bring up this first picture. Yeah, I probably should have shown this device assembled first. What this is this is the DIM.2. I took the 8 terabyte NVMe drive that was on one of the motherboard M.2 slots, and I put it into the DIM.2 riser board. And so this is the story of my experience. This is the riser board. This is the edge connector that connects into the DIM.2 slot. And this edge connector is very, very similar to normal DIM memory, but it's got this little notch here, and we'll get into that a little bit later. This is the cover that came off of here. This cover, when you flip it over, it screws with these 3 screw holes onto these, let's see, right there and there and there. Those are the studs that it screws into. And then here's the connector over here for the M.2. And then the M.2 would be secured on one of these 5 threads. And here's the hardware for putting it in there. I'm going to show that a little bit more detail in another picture. Here's Big Beast Build, still on the rack. I did not take it off the rack. To take it off of that rack, I have to unplug everything on the back, and I figured I could do this on the rack, so I did. So here's the door swung open. And here's the motherboard for Big Beast Build. Down here is the motherboard for Baby Beast. So it's 2 computers in this one case. Here's the graphics card. The DIM.2 slot is right along here. I'm going to show you some closer pictures of it. This is the capture card that I used to bring in the signal from Baby Beast to Big Beast. Okay, we're going to move along. Now you might notice, does this look a little dusty on this filter over the fans? And we will deal with that in these pictures. There's the cooler, the liquid cooler up here, the hoses for the cooler that go to the CPU, and those white, you can see the white memory modules there. Again, graphics card. You can see it's got a little bit of dandruff. The dandruff is visible here. The RGB is these white panels for the G-Skill memory. Is that they're RGB? That's why it looks white here. The computer is shut down, both of them. Here's the DIM.2 slot. Is there anything else I want to make comment of here? Here's the power connector for the graphics card. and go on to the next. This is the back of the computer where I have the monitors connected. I do have my cables labeled because these cables run around the room. I cannot tell by looking at the cables there which monitor they are, and I do want them plugged in a certain order. So I have them labeled. I also have them labeled at the monitor side so that I don't have to figure out which cable is which. This graphics card has 4 ports. There's 2 HDMI ports and 2 display ports. This display port has a plug in it. Now here I've removed the graphics cables because I need to remove the graphics card in order to get to the M.2 slots that are on the motherboard. Here what I'm showing, this down here on the bottom part is the side of the graphics card, and I'm showing the clip on the back of the edge connector slot that has to be depressed in order to get the card out. Now, some of you are saying, Doug, why are you showing me that? I know this. Not everybody who watches my videos knows this level of work. Here I've removed the 2 screws that hold the graphics card in place. And I have to loosen this screw a little bit as well because a little piece of that edge bracket is secured with that screw. Then here I've got the graphics card removed and it's sitting on top of this part of the case, still connected to its power. I did not disconnect the power. Now the computer is disconnected from power right now because it is plugged into a smart power strip that is turned off. There's the, let's see, here's the slot that the graphics card came out of. Here's, I think this is a PCIe by 8 slot, or is that a by 4 slot? I'm a little weak on that. Maybe a by 8 slot comes out to about here. But anyway, that slot is not used. This slot is not used. This slot down here is a by 16 slot, but it only uses, and I'm not sure if that's referred to as an 8-bit card, but I'm thinking it is. Now, there was a concern in approaching this about how the DIMM.2 slot shares memory, shares resources, and is sometimes disabled based upon how we're using the other PCIe slots. I was pretty sure I was clear of this, but I got to a point where I just said, I'll just plug it in to see if it works. Anything else I want to show on this picture? I don't think so. Here you got a better view of the motherboard for Baby Beast. Here's the memory for Baby Beast. Here's the fan for the CPU cooler on Baby Beast. And I think that's the M.2 slot for Baby Beast. For both Baby Beast and Big Beast, there are drive cables that go back to the back side of the case where I have other drives and other equipment. Well, let's see. There's hard drives. There's a hard drive back there, I think. Oh no, this, see how this cable goes down into that hole and then here's the connector? That's for me to connect a drive to the Baby Beast motherboard internally, because I just open the door and plug in this cable and here's a power cable for a drive that I want to connect. But they are, I think these are drive cables going back to hard drives that are on the back side. Anything else here? I don't think so. Moving on. Here's a closer picture of these slots. Oh, what I was showing here is the screws for this cover. The M.2 boards are under this cover. Okay, then here's the cover removed. You see 3 of the screws. There's 1 screw. This first screw that I removed right there, it came out, but these felt like captive screws. You can see a little bit of extra stuff on the tip. I think that might be a Loctite or something like that. That kind of kept these other screws from easily pulling out. So I just left them as they are. And then here's the back side of it. When I turned it over, here's the heat pad for the M.2, for the second M.2 slot. This is the one that was currently being in use, and the heat pad, I'm not, that's not a good technical term, I guess. It was stuck to the NVMe board. I can clearly see I've got trouble with words today. And I'm just showing that if you were going to have an M.2 board on this one, you would pull off that plastic cover. And here's the M.2 NVMe board. It's an 8 terabyte board, and the memory, the heat sink, the thermal heat transfer pad. Come on, give me a better word for that. Looking over here. I could peel it off. Here's the screw holding it down. Here's where the socket is that it's plugged into. Here's the other socket. And the CPU is up above this point. So this was installed in the slot that is away from the CPU. And I know that when you're putting a graphics card in, you're supposed to put it in the slot near the CPU. With an M.2 storage, I don't know whether that's supposed to be near the CPU or not. And even if there is a recommendation, I don't know if it's important. Anything else on this screen? I don't think so. So here I've taken out the screw that secures the M.2 board. And so now it kind of springs up naturally. And then you kind of wiggle it out. It's pretty easy to take out or put in these slots. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. There's the CMOS battery. Next picture. This is the DIM.2 riser board. I'm not sure if that's what if that's the name they use for it. Here's the edge connector for that board, and here's where the M.2 storage device plugs into. And then each of these slots would be for a different length of M.2 storage. This one is for a 2230. That's 22 millimeters wide by 30 millimeters long. It would be 22 millimeters wide by 42 millimeters long, and then 2260, 2280, and 22110. I've never personally seen a 110 long millimeter M.2 board. Oh, and this is, see, here's my zoom here. This is M.2_1. When I turn this board over, there's an M.2_2. So this riser board can accommodate 2 M.2 boards, and you can do RAID. You can do RAID on the motherboard, the 2 motherboard M.2 slots, and you can do RAID on the 2 DIM.2 M.2 sockets. When you do it on the motherboard, the RAID is controlled by the chipset. When you do it on the DIM.2 board, RAID is accomplished through the CPU. So I read the manual, RTFM. Well, not the full manual, but the pertinent parts, and discovered that RAID is run by the CPU when you're using the DIM.2. So I contemplated, I've described before how I had in mind doing this, and so my plans kind of shifted a little bit when I realized that. So I moved my 8 terabyte M.2 NVMe drive to this riser board in one of the sockets, and after I get some time proving that it's running fine, then my intention is to put 2 NVMe boards on the motherboard, configure them in a RAID 0, do a fresh install of Windows 11 there, and use this 8 terabyte board on the DIM.2 I'm going to say it wrong here sometime, and expecting much better performance for my boot drive and my programs, because they will be running on RAID 0, which takes the two drives on the motherboard and runs them as it speeds it up. You get double speed because it can talk to the two boards essentially in series, I'll say, or in parallel, so that you're getting better speed. Let's see, glancing over once in a while at chat. Yes, I looked up shared resources, and so I think I'm clear on shared resources, Lawn Dog. There are shared resources between the DIM.2 and a PCI by 4 slot. Um, but I think the only thing I've got there is that capture card. And I actually have not tested the capture card yet. So that is still a remaining test. Here I am showing that notch on the DIM.2 board. And here's the hardware that's used to secure the M.2 into one of these slots. So you put this piece screws into this hole because I'm using a 2280 and 80 millimeter long NVMe M.2 storage. And then you can see this threads on the top of it and this little shaft right here. What happens is the notch on the edge of the M.2 board fits like a collar right around this shaft. And then this screws into that hole, and the rim of that screw head holds the M.2 board in place. I'm pulling the heat material off of my 8 terabyte M.2 NVMe storage because I'm going to be using this heat transfer pad. So this one comes off. This is the one that belongs to that cover that goes on the motherboard. And it peels off and it's quite flexible and it's still sticky, so it's reusable. So I just put it back on to this shield that covers the M.2 drives on the motherboard. I've got the 8 terabyte M.2 NVMe board plugged into the socket on the DIM.2 riser board, and you can see where it's going to go right here. I've got that nut in place. So this pushes down, circles right around that shaft, and then I put the screw in. There it's in place with the screw. I'm pulling the cover off of the heat absorbent material and then putting this cover back on the DIM.2 riser. And there's in place with the 3 screws. Here's the slot. Now, I did not notice this guy right here until I went to take this photo. I had never noticed this. This thing that says DIM.2, at first when I saw that, I thought it was some kind of a sticker. I thought, oh, that's clever for them to put a sticker on there pointing out that this is the DIM.2 slot, and you're not supposed to put memory boards into here. So I reached down there and tried to pull it off. That didn't go well. Here's another picture of it. Oh, this is just with a light, and I'm just showing that this lever on one side pushes back. The lever on this other side does not open. It just stays solid, as it does for the memory modules as well. A little closer picture of that, and you can see a little bit here. This is actually soldered onto the motherboard. You cannot remove this. I assume it's solder. I don't know if it's connected with solder, but it is not removable. And here's the DIM.2 riser board in place, and you can see that label there that says dim.2. It's still there. Remember that notch that's in the dim.2 riser board? Well, that notch goes right over here. So it's not possible to put this board or put a memory module into this socket. And here I'm just showing that the clip is secured into the notch on the side of the dim.2 riser board. Here I'm doing some cleanup, get rid of the dandruff. It started out with a shop vac, a small shop vac I have, using it in suction mode and actually touching the nozzle there. You can see the marks that I made, and then I used a crevice tool. And then, oh, this is in blower mode. I moved the hose of the vacuum to the other side so that it's blowing, and you can see it blowing dust out. This was my technique to do this in a reasonably safe way. Since I'm indoors here, I did not want to take this outside, and I figured, yes, it's going to blow dust into my office space, but vacuum cleaners will clean the dust off of the carpet. The dust will settle down to the ground. I did not have a mask on at the beginning of this, but then I did put a mask on. You were able to see the fan spinning there a little bit. Oh, it's blowing. And then we'll move on to the next one. And here I'm pulling out the dust shields. You can see this is very dusty. Next photo or video, and here's the filter on the top. It's pretty clean. It doesn't have quite as much opening as the vents on the front of the computer. I think that's why the dust is different. Then I use a microfiber cloth to clean dust more because it didn't clean off very well with the vacuum, and I thought this would be less dust than blowing it. Now this video is 5 minutes long, so I'm going to scrub through it, show the rest of this process, putting the filters back in, doing some additional cleanup, and then I brought in the shop vac or the leaf blower, and just did here. I just put the mask on here, or put it on again. And there's a couple places here where this leaf blower, yeah, there's some dust there coming out from the top. I kind of went back over that a couple times. I'm scrubbing through faster here, doing some more cleanup. This is the first cleaning that I did of this computer. Putting the graphics card back in, scrubbing through, reconnect the video cables, and that's the end of that little video clip. And then here's a speed test. This should be comparable to the speed of when the NVMe was connected directly to the motherboard, but I forgot. My intention was to do a speed test while it was still on the motherboard to get a, apples for apples comparison right after moving it to this location. So that is I think the end of that story. Oh, here's crystal disk info. Nothing that I need to comment about there. Well, I guess we'll say the 8 terabyte drive is split up into partitions for C drive, F drive, and M drive. And I have a high quality spinning hard drive for the L drive and O drive. Now, come back to chat. Looks like I've got, let's see, that's where I finished off. Where's my comment from 2:35 a.m. my time? Oh, I lost it. It's gone. Wow, you don't know who Slash is. Again, wow, Will, then you probably don't know that Slash and Fergie made an awesome video together. Actually, a couple of them. I think the song is called Dangerous. Yep. I never got into music in any kind of deep way. I enjoy hearing it, listening to it, but I can't call myself a fan to the extent of knowing lots of names and trivia. When you first told us about this add-in card and you are using the terminology DIMM M.2, I directly associated with a normal RAM slot DDR, and doing research didn't produce any product. Yeah, DIMM M.DIMM, let's see, terminology DIMM.2. It's not DIMM M.2, it's DIMM.2. Morton, George Armstrong. I think I cited all of those other names already. Necessarily what you're telling us about, but I did find something now with this explanation here. I'm understanding you have a special slot on that particular motherboard, which is something only ASUS motherboards do, and it looks like it's just on a select few motherboards. Yeah, it would only be on motherboards that have this feature. I don't know that it's exclusive to ASUS. It might be. Oops, hang on. Okay. It's designed for the purpose that you're explaining here. Alice, very interesting. My Z590 does not have this particular slot, but I do have 4 M.2 NVMe slots built onto the motherboard. Had a Zoom call run late. M.2 slots on the motherboard. You need to look at to see if it has shared resource and how that's done. Been there, done that. I have 4 M.2 NVMe slots. 2 are PCI 4, the other are PCI M.2 are 3, 2, okay. I've been through that. Similar technique for cleaning computers when I'm blowing air to clean them, but I also have a 1-inch paintbrush that I also use to assist in getting certain areas. That'd be good. The Kerry Holzman method, that must be when you saw the leaf blower. Doug, you're really blowing a heck of a lot of dust into your office. It's everywhere. Yeah, but it falls down on the carpet. Vacuum cleaner will clean it up. Seldom Ball, maybe Kerry did a SSD speed test in one of the computer assembly videos. I have done a speed test on that drive here on this computer. It is somewhere in my list of videos. I was contemplating how could I find it. And if I had exported all, if I could go and reasonably export the transcript of all of my videos and then do a search of all the videos at once, that might make it findable. But I'm sure I did it during a normal one of my live streams, so the title would not be labeled Big Beast Speed Test. All right, I've got to go. I went in a couple times to set up a redirect to Kerry's Friday show and got distracted, did not get it completed. There it is. And let's see, Ken has a show coming up, so we'll do that with a link in chat. If somebody would type Ken's show and then put the link for it, that would be useful. If you don't get to it by the time I get there, then I'll put it in. Here's Kerry's show today, confirmed. And I will go get Ken's link, Windows Daily, Ken Stout, and then click share and copy. Now I could go up and grab it from up here, but this URL is specific to that video. This URL up here is going to take you to whatever his live is. Oh, that's a live stream. Okay, great. Why did I think that was a premiere? I don't know. Ken's show, click here. Doug, I'm so traumatized by not using the right terminology. That's why I'm trying to use the correct terminology. It's because of my past traumas, and that makes the explanation quite lengthy. Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I was talking through this, a lot of things I was saying, I was making it longer because I was trying to use all the terms, and I know I still don't get it all right. Okay, that's all. If you want to send a question to me by email, tomorrow's Saturday's show is at the usual Saturday time. Or a comment on a video, I'll catch that to respond to, or in the chat room. All right, have a great Friday, everybody. Catch you later. Goodbye.